Thank you, President Catherine. It is my very great privilege to provide an introduction for our guest speaker today, Damian Cardona Onses, Director of the United Nations Information Center in Canberra. Mr. Cardona has more than 26 years of experience in strategic communications, crisis communications, outreach, and campaigns within the United Nations system. Before his appointment to Canberra in 2022, he served as UN Information Center Director in Dakar, Senegal, covering French-speaking Africa, and in Bogota, covering Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. In 2021, he was seconded to the UN verification mission in Colombia as Chief of Strategic Communications and Public Information. He has also served in peacekeeping missions in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mali, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Cardona is also Chief of Media Relations and spokesperson for the UN Stabilization Mission in Haiti and Special Advisor to the Special Representative of the Secretary General. It is our very great privilege to have Damian with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Next week in New York, we have the Summit of the Future and the General Assembly, the high-level week, in where presidents, kings, crown princes, presidents of government, prime ministers from around the world gather in New York. In the late 40s, because of the nature of the United Nations, a very simple protocol was adopted. So nobody gets offended if they are not mentioned. Can you imagine now 193 countries if you have to mention them all? So let me use the United Nations protocol today and just salute President Catherine, who is the one presiding our meeting today. Excellencies, for those that are or think they are excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen in general for the rest of us. So anyway, it's my real privilege, and I say it from the bottom of my heart, to be here today. I've been involved with Rotary activities for so many years in many countries. I mean, you are everywhere. You are more present at the UN all over the world. I mean, in Haiti, there is a Rotary Club, several Rotary Clubs. In Haiti, in Mozambique, all over the world. And we have really partnered because we share the same soul, I believe. The United Nations was created in 1945, and I think all of you have a copy of the Charter of the United Nations. I wanted to really give it to you, and I really love this booklet. It has this really old-fashioned design. My mother studied law, and I remember at home, she had this one, and it hasn't changed. But the values inside are permanent. And as I said before, the Rotary Club and the United Nations share the main objective of what the United Nations was created for, world peace. And if we read, and I need my glasses for that, the preamble of the Charter in page 3, there is the most beautiful invitation, and you have to think where we were in 1945. I'm just going to quote very, very short. To reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small. We are determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. When we talk about culture of peace, that we'll be talking in a little while, we think about those people that wrote this charter, one Australian amongst them, that have suffered 2 world wars. Sometimes it's difficult for those of us that have been lucky enough to haven't lived in our own countries, although we have seen around a war, how difficult it is to explain why this is so important. We always say that war can be created in a minute, and peace takes sometimes decades to be consolidated. And it's very difficult to explain to young people. Many of you are teaching in universities, What is the value of peace if you have not experienced in your own life the other side of the coin, which is war? So, but it is our challenge to defend peace, even without having experienced the struggles of war. Let me see if I can do this right. I think I have to do it with okay. Okay, you know the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals were established in the year 2015, and they have a target of 15 years until 2030, and it's a global agenda. The agenda of the Millennium Development Goals that went from 2000 to 2015 was an agenda only for developing countries. Okay, it was sort of top down. You know, they were created actually in a week by Jeffrey Sachs and former Secretary General Kofi Annan with a lot of goodwill, but they were not universal. They were not for everybody. One of the amazing things of the global agenda that we have now is that they are applicable for everybody, for Canada, for South Africa, for South Sudan, and for the United States, for Australia, and for Afghanistan. Even though Afghanistan may want to be in the international community, but still, they apply to them. And Sustainable Development Goal 16 talks about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, providing access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. I mean, that sounds very ambitious, but it is at the base of what can we do and how can we work to achieve sustainability, which the word sustainability now, we just mention it like this all the time, but it's as important as humanity. If humanity is not sustainable, that's it. We are done. You know, so that's the most important. But I would say that not only goal 16, goal 17, which is about partnership, is so important for Rotary Club around the world. Goal 17 asks about all different sectors of society. Very happy to see Kate from Global Compact today with us. All sectors of society, private sector, non-governmental organization, foundations, institutions, universities, together with governments. If there is no synergy amongst everybody, the success will be much far away from where it should be. So I think 16 and 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals are what is so important for us. Cultivating a culture of peace. Culture of peace is even more important than peace itself, I would say. A culture of peace, and I say it in the beautiful city of Melbourne. Don't tell anybody, but I've been 2.5 years in Australia, and it is my favorite city in Australia. And I come here, and the culture of the city is amazing, and the vibrant multicultural society that lives in Melbourne is amazing. But culture of peace, as I said, is even more important than peace itself, because if we do not educate our children, our young people, in really taking conscience of how important peace is, we will never achieve. Because peace, as I said at the beginning, it takes time. It takes a lot of time to be built inside our spirits, our souls, our brains. But it also has to be taught in a way that peace is more efficient. Peace makes life easier than war does. So we really have to find ways to explain to the younger generation why peace is so important. There is a description which I really like and I would like to share with you. There was a declaration of UNESCO, which is the specialized agency of the United Nations in charge of education, culture, and science. There is a declaration and program of action on a culture of peace. And it says, it's not only the absence of conflict, but also requires a positive, dynamic participatory process where dialogue is encouraged, conflicts are solved in a spirit of mutual understanding and cooperation. There is one even a statement that allow me to share with you, because I really believe on that statement. Wars begin in the minds of men. So in the minds of men, that the defenses of peace might be constructed. And I think this is really deep inside what we are celebrating this week. This week, today in Melbourne and all over the world on Saturday. Well, Australia is always behind everybody, in advance that everybody else. So we'll be celebrating International Peace Day before almost everywhere else in the world. But I was really impressed this morning, and I have to say that when Rob took me to the bells, and I was lucky to hear that I was lucky to be here today, because a month ago the bells will not be there. But I think that park, that corner, it's a cornerstone of the botanical garden, and there's all these trees planted by so many people in the Rotary Club that has believed and made their lives at the service of peace. And then all of a sudden, these very kind of unique shaped bells that you don't understand very much what it is, but when you read what they are, and they go from a smaller to the bigger one, it's really, really amazing. And I want to really, from deep in my heart, congratulate Rotary Melbourne for having done such a unique. I've seen these bells in many countries in the world, many bells that do not ring because there is no reason for it. But I think this park in Melbourne has something very, very special, and I'm sure it's going to become a big symbol of the city and the soul of the city of Melbourne. I would like to share also with you a few elements that many universities, think tanks, media, including social media institutions. There has been the United Nations and the Secretary General in particular has a lot of using his good offices and soft diplomacy skills, gathered many relevant people in a very discreet way. And there is a series of adjectives that define what culture of peace should be, or what is needed to build peace. And I think it's, I was reading some of the articles and documents that they share with me from Rotary Club before coming here, and I saw so many synergies. To build peace, we need to be supportive. We need to be empathetic. We need to be inventive, like the bells. I mean, there's a new way to present what a bell of peace is. We need to be passionate. We need to believe in what we're doing. And above all, we need to be cooperative. And I think all those elements are so Rotarian as they can be. And I think I don't need to explain them to you because you have them embedded in your DNA already. Let me go back for a second to the Charter of the United Nations. And if you go to page 24, you have the two chapters that deals with peace. We have chapter 6, that is the peaceful settlements of dispute before they arise. And then we have chapter 7, which is the one that requires action with respect to threats to the peace, breaches of the peace, and acts of aggression. Those two are the chapters that the international community gave to the United Nations. What is the United Nations? The United Nations, I belong to the Secretariat of the United Nations, that beautiful building built on the land next to the East River in New York that was given by the Rockefeller family to the United Nations. And it's international territory from the 42nd Street to the 48th, from the East River to the First Avenue. And that was where the UN headquarters, the General Assembly, the Security Council, and the Secretariat are. But who is in charge when it comes to peace of in the United Nations? It's not the Secretary General, it's the Security Council. And we have been facing in the past many years, I would say in particular the past 30 years, since the war in Iraq, that the Secretary General can use his good offices, can use soft diplomacy, can convene people to build a better world, if you allow me this romantic statement. But when it comes to the reality, is the Security Council. I mean, a country like Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council. And it was presiding the Security Council, because there's rotational, when Russia invaded Ukraine. The United States have also, like the other 5 countries, the veto power to stop many of the proposals to stop war or to build peace. But we have to think, and many people are thinking, that the United Nations were created, as you can see the booklet, in 1945 by our grandparents, parents or grandparents. But now they are supposed to serve our grandchildren with the structures that were conceived almost 18 years ago. Next year it will be 18 years of the United Nations, 80 years of the end of the Second World War. So maybe things have to be changed, because you cannot work with 1945 tools, the challenges of the 21st century. I was telling yesterday had a wonderful dinner here with some Rotarians, wonderful, diverse group of people, and very enriching dinner. And I told them about a big conference that we were doing in Brisbane, not in Melbourne, in Brisbane, at Griffith University, with the European Union in November, about disinformation. Disinformation, I can see my Greek friend there that also deals with these challenges, is something that the level of sophistication of the means, the speed of its dissemination didn't exist before. And now the United Nations next week is going to adopt the Global Digital Compact to try to moderate, or to try to at least soften a little bit the impacts of disinformation that is threatening democracy. People cannot take decisions, sound decisions, if the information that they receive, they don't know if it's true or false. We witnessed the damage of disinformation in public health during the pandemic. I mean, there are so many threats that were not here in 1945, but the UN has to deal with it now. Climate change. Nobody was worried about that issue 80 years ago. And now the United Nations, who else? Maybe Rotary, because it's bigger than us. You mentioned, I think, 221 countries, I think. And we have 193 member states in the United Nations. Who else but the United Nations could deal with the challenges to mitigate? Because I think it's too late to solve it, but at least to mitigate the challenges of climate change. And as Will said, that is a very good question. If we ask the planet, how are you today? What will be the answer in terms of climate, in terms of peace, in terms of disinformation and human rights? There's really too many challenges. I don't know, please, I think we have to go a little bit. Let me show these videos, UNESCO. I think it's very just wanted to share this message from UNESCO on the conference in Luanda, in Angola, because it was a big moment of changing the way culture of peace had to be aligned and how had to be, the approaches changed a lot. And it was great that it was born in the heart of Africa with all these initiatives. I think we're running out of time, so I'm just going to go very quickly to just listen to
Everywhere we look, peace is under attack. From Gaza to Sudan to Ukraine and beyond, we see civilians in the firing line, homes blown apart, traumatized, terrified populations who have lost everything and sometimes everyone. And this catalogue of human misery must stop. Our world needs peace. Peace is the ultimate prize for all humanity. And as this International Day of Peace reminds us, the solutions are in our hands. Cultivating a culture of peace means replacing division, disempowerment, and despair with justice, equality, and hope for all. It means focusing on preventing conflict, propelling the Sustainable Development Goals, promoting human rights, and tackling all forms of discrimination and hate. This month's Summit of the Future is a vital opportunity to advance these aims. Let's seize it. Together, let's lay the groundwork for peace, and let's nurture a culture where equality, peace, and justice thrive. Thank you.
I wanted to finish with the words of our Secretary General. I think it's time to some exchanges. I'm sorry, I didn't exactly know how long the presentation was supposed to be, so I prepared it a little bit longer, but it's fine. I think the messages went through, and I think exchange is more important than unidirectional messages.
Well, I'm sure you all join me in thanking Damian for bringing a message of peace and hope and unity for our global communion. And I'd like to invite those of you who might have questions about how we might update our understanding, our 80-year-old understanding of what it means to have peace in this world, and perhaps dig into a little bit of this a fight against disinformation, which threatens democracies all over the world. Bernie, if you would kindly have the mic. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation. I think the point you made about information and disinformation being able to affect democratic process is a really important one. I guess my question is, who decides what's information and what's disinformation?
Well, the big distinction, like scholars now use, is misinformation is information that is not correct. You know, I mean, facts. Sorry, can you hear me? Disinformation is fake news or misinformation, but spread with an intention to harm, you know, to lie and to influence the decisions of the others. I mean, but what I said before, this information has existed for decades. Second World War, Goebbels, all the propaganda they did to create this hate against Jewish people at that time, and I mean, it has existed already. But the thing is, what is worrying, and really, the Secretary General said that if we continue with this level of disinformation, is as dangerous for societies as a nuclear weapon. I mean, you see videos that you don't know if they're true or they are not. You know, everything can be, I've seen myself factories, companies in Africa, in Mali, in Central African Republic, with hundreds of young people in front of a computer just creating fake news. And it's becoming an incredible business in Russia, for example, also in Baltic countries. I mean, it's incredible. And of course, that's the problem. Let me just finish with something. When I was a kid, I used to do my homework in my grandparents' house, which lived quite near my home. And they had this huge encyclopedia of 100+ volumes. And when I was doing my homework, if there was something I didn't understand, I would go to the letter L, open it, and read it, and I knew that I could put it in my homework because that was right. Now you Google everything, but what comes out of it, you don't know. I mean, you have to fact check what's happening, and there's lots of challenges, lots.
Thank you, David. Damian, do you think it might help world peace if the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, came together and publicly declared that in this day and age, in the 21st century, all three have equal worth and status?
I was just talking before about the World Council of Religions that happened in my home city in Barcelona, in Spain, many years ago. I think religions and culture and religion has a lot to do, because I mean it goes to the heart of people, and you know, and that's in the heart, as I said before, where peace can be built. So in the minds and in the heart, it has to be a combination of both. So religion dialogue. The UN has a very interesting project for probably 25 years called Alliance of Civilizations that encourage the dialogue among the three monotheistic religions, but also other religions or other groups that are involved around the world.
I think that's all the time we have for now. I'm sure you can buttonhole Damian on your way out if you have another burning question. But I'd like to thank you, Damian, for your time today. We know you're a very busy man and have many occasions to attend. And we'd like to present you with this gift of our Rotary Club of Melbourne, which has the gift of Rotary socks, which are 200% Australian made in Preston by our very old past president Phil Endersby from Wilderness Wear. We also have a centenary coin and a history of the Club of Melbourne. And there is a bicycle in the shape of a pizza cutter as well. So thank you very much. Will you all please give a warm thank you to Damian. Thank you. Thank you. So in closing, I would like to thank our many visitors and guests for attending today. There's a wonderful crowd. It's lovely to see the hall filled up today. I'd like to thank MC Bernie McIntosh and for their reflections, Cheryl Lacey, and our lunch setup and reception teams for their weekly effort in making this meeting happen. Please, if you can stay back a few minutes to assist with the pack up, they would be most appreciative. And as a reminder, next week, as mentioned by President Catherine, is our annual grand final lunch, to which you are all most warmly invited. We will return here at number 35 with a special guest panel featuring Stephen McBurney, head of AFL umpiring, and Adrian Anderson, vice president of the Melbourne Cricket Club. We look forward to a conversation on AFL management, and our football quiz will be returning. So do wear your colors, invite a guest, and join us.